Welcome to the Papa's Perspective edition of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture. All right, so the Giants are playing the Patriots, and when you think about the Giants and Patriots, you think of comebacks, helmet catches, but the one constant in those Giant wins against the Patriots was the defense. So we had to get Justin Tuck on to talk a little bit about it. 4 sacks in the 2 Super Bowls 42 and 46. Justin, when you see the Patriot logo, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I mean, honestly, I think consistency, to be honest with you. What they were able to accomplish year in and year out, especially when they had number 12 there, was the model of consistency. And we obviously wanted to have that same model of consistency when we were playing. So that's the first thing that comes to mind with me. I know it's the whole Boston-New York rivalry and all that stuff, but the first thing is in admiration of how successful they were and trying to be in our own ways that successful.
So like in a boxing match, sometimes you want to feel the other guy's power as you kind of get into the fight. You got a chance to feel the Patriots' power in that 2007 regular season finale. Conversely, they got to feel your power, and you guys gave them all that they can handle. What was it about the matchup going into Super Bowl 42 and their offensive line that gave you guys a lot of confidence as far as your ability to win consistently, which is what you did over the course of 60 minutes of football?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think for us, playing them in that last regular season game, it pulled the veil back, right? They were probably in a lot of ways looked upon as superheroes. Obviously, they had so much success, and not only just winning games, but how they won them. I don't think they had been truly contested and been in a fight for a true 4-quarter game. Or at least I couldn't remember watching it on film where they had to go down to the wire and win a football game. They really dominated that season. So for us, man, it was apparent to us that, one, we matched up very well with them, especially the O-line, D-line. We didn't do a lot of scouting for them that outside. I mean that last game, because we was already positioned in the playoffs against Tampa Bay. We already knew where we were slotted. So we obviously looked at them and put together a somewhat generic game plan. But what I thought that did for us was it allowed us to not have a lot of things going on in our mind when we played them that first time and truly play fast. And it allowed us to really see how we really matched up against them. So I think a lot of that was taken into consideration when we put the game plan together for the 42 Super Bowl. And we didn't do a lot of things. Spags didn't put a lot of blitzes in. He put it, obviously he had some wrinkles in, but we just knew that if we went out there and played confident and played fast, that they're going to have problems matching up with us across the board. And luckily for us, man, it really allowed us to go out and play fast. And so, I ain't gonna say carefree. You can't play carefree in the Super Bowl, but we definitely played, open-minded from the perspective of not having a lot of clutter.
So, the game starts, you guys go on a drive, you use some clock. So you kind of get in the game to be played at your pace, not their pace, which is up and down, up and down. How important was those first couple series for you guys defensively to kind of hit them in the mouth and let them know that this game was going to be played on a whole different level? Because, I mean, Plaxico made the infamous comment that they weren't going to score 17 points. They set an NFL record for the most points ever scored in a season, the most yards, anything else. But your defense made them play on your terms as opposed to their terms.
Well, I think what we was able to do was get to Tom without having to blitz him a lot. So it allowed our secondary to stay home, stay in place, make him really feel uncomfortable. We tried our best to take away his 1 and 2 punch. Obviously, having Randy and all the records they set that season with him, we wanted to kind of make sure that he didn't have that as an option. And the fact that we was able to rush the passer with me, Osi Stray, and Barry Cofield. I think Barry hit him on the first play of the game on the screen pass. it set the tone that, we didn't feel like their O-line could block us. We didn't need to blitz them. Obviously, we did some things to throw wrinkles in, but when it came push to shove, we felt like we had a dominant matchup up front. And I always give guys credit. Tom Brady is arguably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, but I've never seen a quarterback throw a touchdown or complete a pass off his back, and that's what fueled us. So as we got more comfortable in the matchups we had up front, like you said, we were able to kind of dictate. We stayed ahead of the sticks instead of the other way around. They had so many second and long, third and long. They couldn't run the ball against us. And it allowed us to dictate how we were going to play the game, which I don't think they had seen anything like that, or been in those situations previously in the previous, I guess, 17 games that they had played.
You've been involved in some games where the team has had big sack totals. I mean, the sack totals weren't off the chart, but the hits. I think sometimes people underestimate what the hits do because, like any human being, your clock is going to speed up if you're constantly getting hit. Was that a messaging that was like, hey, even if we're not getting sacks, let's make sure we hit him and speed up his thought process?
I've always thought that hitting the quarterback was probably even more valuable than the sack plays because it never allows him to get comfortable. We never really allowed him to feel comfortable setting his feet. Tom is obviously not the most athletic, but he's very crafty in the pocket. He knows how to move sideways, upwards, downwards in the pocket to give himself some more time. Most times we rushed him, we had at least two guys, beating our men that gave him, pressure from one side, or, if it was, O.C. Astray winning on their matchups on the outside and me and, Barry Cofield or Fred Robinson or whatever it may be coming from the middle. He didn't have a lot of outlets. So a lot of times when we weren't sacking him, either we were hitting him or he had to dump the ball quicker than he wanted to. So I think that played so much more of an impact on just the fact that he wasn't able to feel comfortable back there, and I think that that obviously weighs on you. I don't know. I don't remember how many quarterback hits we had or pressures we had, but I felt like every time he dropped back, it was never a clean pocket for him. He never allowed him to feel comfortable in stepping up and throwing the football. And I don't care who you are, that weighs on you, and that has an effect on how you play.
To speak to his greatness, after you guys take the lead, though, they get the ball back, and Jay Alford whacks him on the first play, smokes him. Yeah. When you watch the replay of it, can you believe that he was still, after the beating that he took, able to make the throw that he made to Moss that could have changed the course of history?
Listen, man, we throw the word great around so much in sports today that I don't think it has the same impact of, like, when I grew up, you say greatness, that person was, far and above elite. When you think about the beating that Tom took that game, I still remember watching that play, and I felt like he was signaling timeout before his back hit the ground when Jay hit him. And obviously that was a huge hit late in the game after he had took so much of a beating. And then to come back and throw two balls in the air, I mean, they probably traveled 70 yards and on a dime. I mean, Randy Moss, I don't think that people understand how close he was to making those catches, which, gives me some heart ribbon as I sit here and think about it. But I mean, that you come to expect that from the greatness. You think about, we're obviously giving Tom Brady his credit, but I want to give Eli credit too. You think about that San Francisco game in 2011-12 season out there in the championship game. Eli took that same type of beating, that same type of, not only mental distress around, how much beating he was, but physical distress and continue to stay in it. So, those guys like that, the names like that, those quarterbacks like that, there's a reason why they obviously get paid as much money they get paid, and they're as successful as they are. They're cut from different cloths, and obviously Tom is a guy that has proven that throughout his entire career. And honestly, as a competitor, don't get me wrong, you want to go out there and beat the crap out of him, but after the game, you have a mutual respect of how he played the game and how he stood in there and took those beatings and still, gave everything he had right to the end.
Two great examples. The only difference, and Giant fans like this one, is Brady didn't win that game.
100%.
Eli won that game in San Francisco.
100%. 100%.
Hey, so 2011, they got this long streak going, having not lost at home. You guys go up there. Jake Ballard makes an incredible catch in the corner of the end zone, another comeback. But again, you played that game on your terms. How confident were you going into Foxborough at that point? And did you feel like maybe you were in their heads a little bit?
Well, at the time you don't really think that way, or at least I didn't think that way as far as being in their head. But I do think when you look back at it and just all the noise surrounding our games with them up there, coming off of that Super Bowl, yeah, I do think they might have pressed a little bit. They might have felt a little bit more anxiety because they might have felt like we matched up well with them and had their quote unquote number. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to who makes the plays, who plays the best, who has the best game plan and executes that game plan. And New England just forced you to be on your P's and your Q's. It just forced you to be at your best. Because if you wasn't at your best, they would embarrass you. So I think a lot of times when we played them, we knew the level of talent, the level of execution that they were going to play at, and we felt very confident that we matched up with the talent, that Coach Coughlin and staff knew this team and knew how to get us in the right situations to make plays, and it just allowed us to go out there and play freely against them. I don't know why that is, because obviously a lot of other teams had those opportunities to play well against them and didn't. But we felt like we matched up with them well, and again, there was I think going into Foxborough at that time, a lot of teams went in and already was defeated. We went in and felt like we had a shot if we played our game, and obviously we did that.
So Super Bowl 46, you wrap up 2 more sacks, games being played in Indianapolis. Was there a different kind of pressure that you felt going into that game, and the fact that a lot of people thought you were the better team? You had beaten during the regular season, and let's face it, if they don't call that holding penalty, and I think NYG-NE, I mean, you guys are in control of the game, and Vince Wilfork even laughed about it afterwards because he knew that he drew a call that really wasn't a penalty. But was it a different kind of feeling playing them that time?
Yeah, it definitely was. I mean, I think the nucleus of our team at that time was a little bit older. We had experienced the highs of winning it, and then honestly having the experience of thinking we were going to win in 08 and not, being able to climb back to the top of that mountain. Getting back there in 46, we felt as though we were the better team. We felt as though, and I don't remember what the line on the game was, we felt like we should have been the favorites. But you also feel like, the ball is, football is funny and sports is funny. Like with a guy like Tom Brady, you feel like he's coming in there and he has revenge on his mind. And it's going to be a great story of how he avenged, Super Bowl 42. And you feel like the karma of sports might go against you. And I think that was the pressure or anxiety that we felt. It wasn't necessarily if we were going to be able to go out and perform like we did previously against this team. It was just like, man, is the football gods going to be on our sides again, or is it just going to go the way of the quote unquote greatest quarterback ever played a game, right? So that was the only anxiety I felt. But I did feel like we had a more veteran team at this time than 42. We'd been there, we'd done that. And the moment wasn't going to get to us. We were going to make sure it got to them. And again, matchups for us was pretty much the same situation. A dominant front four that could put pressure on that guy. If you couldn't put pressure on Tom in those situations, man, and just make him uncomfortable back there, he's going to eat you apart. So knowing all that, we just felt like we were going to walk in there and obviously have to play our best football game, but be very poised in doing that.
Can't talk about the history of the Giants and the New England Patriots without mentioning the name Justin Tuck. 4 sacks combined in the 2 Super Bowls, a key part of why the Giants were able to win both of those Super Bowls and that regular season game in 2011. Justin, we appreciate a couple minutes, and thank you so much for reliving some of those great experiences with us.
Bob, is always a pleasure. And anytime we can talk about beating, the Patriots, I'm always game for it. So thank you.
That's Justin Tuck on this edition of Papa's Perspective, part of the Giants Huddle podcast, brought to you by Bob's Discount Furniture.